Hey class, so you just finished my last video. Here we're starting our new one. If at any point you guys need to pause what I'm talking and so you can take notes if I'm moving too fast, please do that. Right now we're at the climax. We talked a little bit in the last video, but I want to go ahead and just reiterate some important things about climax. And we're going to talk about climax a lot, and I'm going to work with you on finding climax, and I'm going to have you answer questions about it because it's so important. But climax is the highest point of action or interest in that story in the sense of what it does with the characters. So climax is going to be, let's do an example of a story between two siblings, brothers and sisters, or brother and sister, and they are, the inciting incident is that maybe one sibling takes the other sibling toy. So and they don't know, right? So I don't know if that's ever happened, but whenever I was growing up, I did that with my brothers. And so it was always a, hey, did you take my toy? No, I didn't take your toy. Kind of that fighting. And as that fighting is happening, that's kind of like the rising action because we know something's going to happen. And that suspense being built comes to a point or comes to a head with the climax when maybe the brother and sister have a fight, a verbal fight, and they say, I know you took that toy from me. Another example could be you have a story of a man who is out in the woods, and the inciting incident is that he has, 4 matches, and it's cold. And so that's something that's starting the story. And as he's cold and as he has these 4 matches, the sun is setting. So he is working and he's already used, as he's like trying to build a fire, he's used 3 of his matches. And none of the fires have worked. And as the fires have been dimming and going away, the sun has been setting. And so you're building this suspense. And then finally it comes to that point. You have 1 match left and the sun is almost setting. What's going to happen? That's a really suspenseful point. Or maybe you have a story of a girl that is having some internal struggles because she's seen a friend cheat on a test or something like that. A really moral struggle of, I love my friend, but that's a sin. That's wrong. So what am I going to do? And so she's inside her mind, she's thinking of the 2 situations that could happen if she told the teacher the truth or if she protected her friend. And then all of a sudden it kind of comes to a head when the teacher's like, hey, what happened here? And she has to make that choice. That's the climax. It's the most suspenseful part. A way you can keep climax and inciting incident kind of separate is that the inciting incident is always near the beginning of the story. So if you want to put that in your notes here, always near the beginning of the story, I think that's going to really be helpful and beneficial to kind of see the difference there. So you have the climax, like I said. After everything kind of comes to a head, the brother and sister fight. The man lights the match as the sun sets. The girl finally has to decide if she's going to tell her teacher or not. The direct result of that is the falling action. That's going to be, the brother and sister have a fight, and then the mom comes in to help them work through their fight. The man ends up lighting the fire and he is getting warmed as the sun is down. The girl ends up telling the truth and the teacher tells her she's not in trouble because she told the truth. And then what's the result? The girl's friend who did cheat gets in trouble. It's a direct result of it's actually kind of mathematical if you think about it. It's kind of like, okay, 1 + 1 = 2 here. So this suspense plus this action equals the direct result of what's happening. So the falling action in real life is on Christmas morning. That suspense of coming downstairs and opening those presents. You get this gift. You're like, what is this gift? I'm so excited. You open this gift. The falling action is being excited to have this gift, opening it up, being able to play with the toy or wear the clothing or put on the makeup or kick the ball. And that's the falling action. Okay, so it's the direct result. It's connected to the climax. And then, of course, we end, I'm going to move my little face here. We end with the resolution, our last box. And the resolution is, it ends the falling action by telling or implying the final outcome, you know. And this is usually, and they all lived happily ever after, you know, and the hero won and the bad guy lost, you know. So the resolution is just kind of the end of the story. It's usually, for a short story, it's usually a sentence, sometimes a short paragraph. For a novel, it can be maybe a chapter, maybe half a chapter. It's just kind of finishing the tale, and it's where the character ends, essentially. That's how I would say it's where the character ends. This can be some way we like, you know, like, hey, the hero wins, good guys always win, and they live happily ever after. Or it can be where you don't like it. There's been plenty of books where I read and I really want the character to end a certain way and the character doesn't. So it doesn't mean that it's like happily ever after. It just means that the character's story has come to an end. So resolution, it's resolute. It's been resolved, even if we don't like it. So that's kind of what our plot sequence, plot mountain, plot diagram, plot pyramid, all of that, that's what it looks like, as we have the exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. There's 6 points. There's always going to be 6 points in your plot mountain. You may have more if you have, like, if you look at our picture here of our little guy, you could have a lot of really suspenseful parts to the story and a couple of falling actions if it's a really long novel. But it's always going to have those 6 points at some point in the story. It's not going to end in the climax, because that means it's not following the plot structure of the story. It's not going to end in the exposition, because then it's not a story. And every story, whether we like it or not, whether we like the ending or not, is going to be resolved in some way. So just a few pointers here. See if I can move me where I'm in the right spot here. Fictional stories, and we talked about fiction is not real. It's not, I mean, it can be real, like realistic fiction, but it's not based off of, you know, someone's life experience, or it's not the dictionary. Fictional stories always follow the predictable pattern of a plot. The exposition, we meet the characters and the setting. The inciting incident is the stories being set in motion, the conflict is introduced, which we'll talk about conflict on Monday. The rising action is the conflict continues to worsen. The climax is when the character is confronting. I like the word confronting more than attacking, but it still works. The character confronts the conflict because of an event that just happened, or a decision they have to make. The event of the toy being stolen between the siblings, and they're confronting each other. The event of, hey, I have one match left. I gotta try to this fire better light, or I'm gonna get really cold tonight. Or the decision of, hey, my friend made a really unwise decision and made a sinful decision, and now I have to decide if I'm going to, you know, be a friend, and you're not really being a friend there, but being a friend, or if I'm going to do the right thing. You know, that truthful decision that they have to make. And then after that, you have the falling action, which is that direct result of the climax, okay? The resolution is a problem that is resolved and the story it ends. You know, the character story has finished. The journey has been made and it's done. And so that is the plot mountain. you have on your homework tomorrow, you have this little elements of plot, right? And then you're going to read a little story together, okay? So you have this here. We have the exposition, inciting incident, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. And then you have these things. I'm already looking at this first one, the end of the story. We know that that's not the exposition. We know that it's not the climax, because those don't happen there. So you can kind of use your imagination there. Another definition, the turning point in a story. We have C is ties up the loose ends in a plot. D, when the conflicts arise or when the action is being built upon. Sets the story in motion and reveals the characters and the setting. And I'm hopefully, based off of your notes that you have here, hopefully you have your notes here, you feel confident enough to be able to answer that at home. But if you have questions, feel free to ask me. Like I said, you'll read that story and then you'll answer some questions. I have very specific instructions for you on RenWeb, or Facts now, I guess, on how I want you to answer those. There's 2 questions on Thursday and Friday homework that I don't want you to answer because I just didn't think we'd have time to go over it in detail in class today. So we'll come back and answer those questions later, but I want to make sure that you understand that I really try hard not to assign anything that I have not spoken about in class. So anyways, all of that to say, I hope that this lesson was helpful for you. Hopefully you paused where you needed to pause. I am going to have this available for you on Edpuzzle. If you are not able to access the resources and you need to re-see this, I will also make this PowerPoint available on Facts for you to look at yourself. It won't have my teaching, but it will have the PowerPoint for you. And I hope that that will be something that you can find beneficial as well. I'm so sorry I wasn't there today, but I really hope that you had a wonderful, wonderful second day of school.